Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to the Relationship Cheat Code, where we give you the game helping you to stress less and experience your absolute best in your relationship. This right here is my delectable, my sensational, my incredible, my beautiful, my indelible and edible wife,
I don't
Iana.
I don't think I've gotten an introduction like that in a minute.
That's my baby, yo.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
my boo thing. I love my life, my wife.
And this right here, this is my dapper, debonair, amazing protector, the love of my life, my anchor, my soft space, my teddy bear, my rock in more ways than one. Ayise.
Yes. We here, y'all. We here.
My
Thank you, baby, for the introduction. So we here, y'all. We're here, and we're going to touch on something that we know is, a topic that a number of people deal with in their relationship. And it's two H things. And when I say H, I'm talking about hopelessness and helplessness. Do us a favor and drop a comment in the chat. Just put a 1 in the chat, letting us know whether or not you deal with this. We want to see who's in the room watching this, if you're watching it on replay. But again, if you've had any long-term relationship, been in a relationship, committed relationship with somebody for an extended period of time, then there's a possibility that you may have been confronted with these two feelings, like hopelessness and helplessness. It's real, y'all. It's real.
It's very real. And I think right now, like within the context of what's been going on in the country and post-election and all of these kinds of things, people feel it even more, especially Black folks.
Yeah.
People of color just feel it even more. It's like, oh, Lord. So everything that is happening in the country sometimes intensifies whatever's going on in your relationship. So I just want to bring that to your awareness that if you were already feeling overwhelmed, now you may feel extra overwhelmed. If you were feeling a little bit like down and like, man, especially with stuff that's like persistent.
Yeah.
Like, God, we still keep dealing with the same old, right? Or I keep dealing with the same situation. Then it can feel even more intensified when we have stuff just going on in the climate of the country and the world that is a lot. But I think the first thing that I want to say that I think is really important is that people need to know that it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. Just like acknowledge your feelings. The first step for so many things in life is just to acknowledge that that's what you feel. Sometimes I think that as Black folks, but as people in general, really, we're so conditioned a lot of times to keep pressing, to keep pushing, to keep putting one foot in front of the other. It's hard for us to acknowledge that we feel how we feel, that I don't really know what the future holds. I don't know if we're going to stay together. I don't know, like, if our relationship is going to be one where we're just roommates the rest of our lives, and you know what I'm saying, we ain't going to really like be homies like we used to be. I don't know if we're going to have sex again. I don't know if we're going to have sex that actually feels good again. You know what I mean? Like, just the helplessness of like, we be seeming like we're on two opposite ends of the spectrum, in various things. I don't know if you're ever going to be able to see my heart again. Just acknowledge those feelings and do it without shame. Do it without feeling as though there's something wrong with feeling the feelings, because we cannot change, as I oftentimes say, anything that we do not acknowledge. So I do think that the first thing that needs to happen, sometimes people need to name it. I am feeling, you haven't even said this to your partner, I am feeling very overwhelmed. I am feeling a little helpless, maybe a lot. And right now, everything around me is just a fuck shit, including this relationship. That's hard to reckon with.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to say. But I think it's important for folks to be honest, because you can't move into a place of being better, of clarity, of starting to make any level of progress if you don't name where you really at.
That's true.
You know what I mean? You can't even do it because like you faking. So I think that piece is important. Just acknowledge what you feel, how you feel. And I think a lot of times people don't say those words because we're taught to be strong. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, that's true. And I think that a lot of times people don't say those words is because we're in a space where we're constantly trying to be an investigator to see where do those feelings come from. And so we're examining and trying to peel back the layers, and we want clarity. We want more, we want more information. We want some more insight. And so
this is people in general.
Yeah, I think people in general. So before I even get to embracing and accepting the feelings, Like I have to be able to identify and name them, as you're saying. But at the same time, too, like where does this stuff come from? Like where do these feelings of hopelessness and helplessness come from? And so I can see that I'm still stuck in the same space, but why am I still stuck? And I do think that once we grapple with that reality of really getting to the why we find ourselves in that same space, then it makes it easier for us to not only name it, but also to sit with it for a second. Not stay there, but sit with it for a second. One of the things that I've seen, specifically in this work that we do helping couples, is that, and individuals, is that a lot of times people feel like they've tried the things. They've tried all of the things, or even if they haven't tried all of the things, that they don't have enough bandwidth to do anything else. And so the feeling of helplessness may come into play where you don't think that you're worthy of help. You don't feel like you have the capacity to extend yourself and reach out to get the help. You don't feel like anybody else is checking for you or looking for you to see whether or not you even need the help. And so I feel helpless because I feel all by myself and ain't nobody checking for me. And I also don't know where to check. And so there's this feeling, this pervasive feeling of helplessness that weighs on me, which, leads me to the place of just feeling bad and feeling hopeless as a result of like the feeling of helplessness. But what we often say is when it comes to this feeling of helplessness, one of the things I say is just put yourself in the room. Like put yourself in the room and put yourself around people to be able to expand the possibilities that you may have to see something different so you can be something different.
That's very important. And getting back to what you were just talking about in terms of like the root cause, you said, what's the why? Real talk, like I don't feel like a lot of times, and we're going to talk about that later on in the week. But I don't feel like people really want to go there. I don't really want to figure out like what's underneath all of this because it's easier. And I've talked about this with the women that I'm working with right now. It's easier to be a victim. It's easier to externalize the issues and say it's about this and that and this person and that person or life right now or even the election or the economy it's easier. And I'm not saying that there are not very, 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 very legitimate concerns that people have about their lives, about the people who are in them, about your spouse or what have you. But until you're willing to look at what the underlying issues are, you'll forever be like overwhelmed by the whole of your relationship. Because everything kind of gets conflated together. And that keeps you undisciplined and not able to really root out what's really going on so that I can actually very specifically address specific areas. And I can have very specific things that I need to do differently. And ways that I need to move differently, feedback I need to give, words I need to say, ways I need to hold myself accountable. But if I don't do all of that, then it's very likely that I'll stay in a helpless and hopeless place. And so I think it's important to balance out like, name it. I don't want you to feel ashamed about it. We need to normalize that we're going to feel that way sometimes. But we also, I personally, speaking for me, myself, and I, also don't want to normalize hanging out in that place or letting that space turn into your being a victim. Because there's too many victims and not enough victors. And that is by choice. We can choose. We can choose.
Yeah.
So we can choose to rise up and push back against even our own selves. I mean, you can actually be out here getting that work, out here really saying, I'm going to lean into my spouse, even though I feel rejected. I'm going to really pay attention to being a student of my wife and really speaking her love language, even though I feel like she don't really do it for me. I'm going to press forward and I'm going to be consistent in making sure that I give my husband feedback. And even when he gets upset, I'm not going to withdraw and retreat. That's the work that we have to do. I'm going to do that even though I feel helpless. Even though I feel hopeless. Oftentimes we're feeling those feelings and we're waiting for those feelings to subside in order to get to the root cause of what's going on and in order to get to the prescription and the prescribed behaviors. But, you sometimes in the middle of the process of overcoming some things. You feel miserable.
Yeah.
You feel like this is the fuck shit.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the people who choose to deal with those feelings, to feel those feelings, to acknowledge them, to not allow shame to come up and be the thing that takes over, but to just be able to witness your feelings and put one foot in front of the other. Do two things at once: chew gum and walk and talk, baby.
Yeah.
Those are people who actually get out of that space and don't just stay in a cycle of that helplessness, because that's a learned behavior. And when you sit in that position, that's a learned position. We all can feel the feelings, but if you sit in that space and it's comfortable and you got pillows and a blanket, you know what I'm saying, a little light to flash to say comfort zone, because you just, that's your place, then that's learned. That's not normal per se to just go in there and, you know, post up in that joint.
Yeah, I mean, I want to reiterate this point that, so when it comes to this whole helplessness piece, sometimes we look for and we seek conveniences that only reinforce the place that we feel most comfortable, which is, you know, in a place where we're not wanting to do the work. We want to go to the amen corner and really align ourselves with people who echo similar situations and spaces that we may be in. So it can be a whole place of fuckery that y'all are dealing with, but as long as you got somebody that's in that space with you, then it feels as though it's manageable and sustainable, and y'all grow comfortable in that place. But there's so much more for you. There's so much more for you, and so what we're speaking to is the fact that, like, in order for you to get from that place of helplessness, get from the place of residing there, you got to first recognize it. And at the same time, too, you got to position yourself properly so that you're around people or in spaces that say that there's more in store. Because, again, you can align yourself with people that high five you on all of the BS that you might be dealing with. But if you're in other rooms, if you're in other spaces and have other types of conversations, then you'll see that there's more out there for you. And so you got to position yourself properly. Position yourself properly around people in certain communities that's going to help you to elevate and go to the next level. So that's really what's required to get beyond this stuckness and helplessness and to see that there's more out there. That exposure equals expansion, y'all. It really does, but you got to be exposed.
But here's the thing. You have to have the right mindset, and we can be developing the right mindset. We don't have to just like all of a sudden be there.
Yeah.
But you have to have the right mindset. And one of the first things that I want to encourage people to really take on, especially if this is a challenge for you as an assignment from today's podcast, is simply this.
Hey, what's up, y'all? So we know you're enjoying the episode, but check this out, y'all. We're not just any old random couple that's coming on YouTube every week just giving relationship suggestions and stuff like that. We're way more than that, y'all. We're trained therapists and relationship coaches. This right here is my beautiful, incredible, sensational wife, Iana.
And this right here is my dapper, debonair husband, Ayize. So y'all, we just want you to know that there is more. We don't want you to just be a spectator. We want you to get in here with us and join our community. We have all kind of folks who are doing their personal work, their relationship work. We have sister circles and men's lounges and trainings, and we address all kinds of things from infidelity to disconnection to communication issues and sex and intimacy issues. Look, the solution is at blandcore.com.
Come and join us.
You've got to move from all or nothing to being a work in progress. Being a work in process. Too many people feel helpless and feel overwhelmed and feel like shit ain't working because you are looking for results that are not commensurate with your time in the game. It's not commensurate. The results don't equal what you really put in. Oh, I've done this and I've done that and I've tried this and I've tried that. You've been married 5 years. You certainly ain't put. You think you done something? Not really. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't even have enough time in the game, but you want the results of 20 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You want to skip the process, and you don't want to be in process. It's all or nothing. Either we are that couple, or I'm that husband, that dude, that daddy. I'm that woman, that wife. You know, I got it all going on. Or we just man, like, you know, you comparing yourself. You're saying we ain't got this, we ain't got that. We avoid real change, real process. And so the way to start combating that debilitating mindset, that defeating mindset, is to remind yourself that life is a series of shades of gray, that it really is about incremental change. So focus on the wins, the small wins, the incremental changes that you're making, that your partner is making. Focus on, this is what they mean in church when they say, I may not be, what they say? I may not be where I want to be, but I'm sure not where I used to be.
Yeah.
That's what he's talking about. That's a mindset piece. And if everything has to be that you have to have arrived in that, he didn't do it right this time. He did it for I hear so many women. He showed up for 4 or 5 weeks, but then he just went back to the way it was. So many people are so scared of not being able to, he's not going to keep it up or she's not going to keep it up. But we never pause to think. Now this is very common. We hear this a lot. But do you ever stop to think that, okay, so you all are shifting behavior, you're maybe connecting more, you're communicating more effectively, you're spending more time, you're being more transparent, maybe you're setting boundaries, you're showing more loving behavior, you're speaking love languages. I don't know what it is for you, right? You're doing that. And then you get into that 4 or 5, 6 week mark and you're like, oh, you start to get nervous. He's starting to slide back. He ain't come up here. He ain't come to bed. He's still downstairs. That's supposed to be a part of what we disrupted.
Yeah.
He ain't supposed to stay down there until 2:00 in the morning. He's supposed to come up here so we can have some time to connect. So all the while you're focusing on, this is just one example, but all the while you're focusing on your partner and what they may or may not be doing and how they may or may not be sliding back, you don't recognize that your mindset is sliding back. That you have an opportunity to continue to be a disruptor in the funky pattern, that you are seeing the beginnings of what you fear, but you don't have to get into that you can choose hope as action.
Yeah.
You don't have to be hopeless. You can move into action. And how do we demonstrate hope in our actions? You get your ass up and you go downstairs and you sit next to them and say, hey boo, it's 11:30. You coming upstairs? I want us to continue. Or maybe you get into bed. And maybe you let him sit downstairs and realize that he ain't got to do it every single night the same way at the exact same time and be perfect, because who can live life like that?
Yeah.
And then you are allowing yourself to live in a space of fluidity, of progress, of incremental change, not perfection. And that feels so much better. That's so much more liberating for you and your partner, everybody around you. Rigid people, can't never be happy. And it's not because of what other people will or won't do. It's because of the projection of what you think is supposed to be and why that can never be satisfied. And so the work always is within.
Yeah.
So I just think that piece is really important. Focus on the small wins, focus on the incremental change, and move that mindset from all or nothing to some fluidity, right? To shades of gray, and to being a work in progress.
Yeah. When I reflect on what you just said, it makes me think of some folks got this internal restlessness. Yes. The meter is always going. Yes. And I know that at times I struggle with that myself. But when you got this internal restlessness, the recipe or the prescription for you is to rest. It's to allow yourself the space and the time to rest, to recognize that, constantly having the motor going is unhealthy and also is less productive than you think. I was watching a reel the other day, and it was of a dude that was on a loading dock, and what was funny, it was captioned by saying, this is the person at work that's always busy but ain't doing nothing. And he was on the loading dock, and he was actually about to help all of the people who were lifting the things and putting them on the truck. And so he would go from one thing and then try to assist, and they would be lifting it up, go to another thing, pick up something off the ground, pick up the broom, pick up this. And he was all in this real small, probably, 12-foot space. He was moving back and forth, going from one thing to the other. But all of the workers around him, they were already doing the stuff. But he was jumping from one thing to the other, just trying to be of support, but nobody even asked him to be of support. And he wasn't even really helping. He was just touching the things and then looking around and then moving on to something else. And so for us, people who struggle with this internal motor or this internal sense of restlessness, we got to actively combat and battle the inclination and the tendency to just do. And what we got to do is put ourselves in a position to just be. and really embrace that. Embrace the idea of just being. It's easier said than done, especially if you feel a sense of helplessness. But again, if you be in certain rooms, then those rooms can support you and help to elevate you, because your understanding will expand about what's really required for you to move more efficiently and effectively in your life. And I do think that once you grapple with and deal with the helplessness piece, when you start to take small bites, when you chunk your work, when you are able to schedule and do things in a microwave versus constantly looking at the macro, as you were just saying, what it does is it gives you hope. And so, it shows you evidence of what you can do. Yeah. And so again, the way to battle the hopelessness is to get evidence of forward progress. And even if you can't see it for yourself, there's somebody who's come before you that can speak to and that has shown you that it's possible. And so lean on the fact that you can take their testimony. You can shout them out. You can pull from them and get some hope from their experience. But again, don't underestimate the small wins. Every win is a win.
And everybody has to learn how to get still, how to get still so that you can actually perceive your wins, so that you actually can make room for them. Because you can borrow, as my husband says, and I say as well, you can borrow other people's belief. You can get in proximity, but nothing can make up for a lack of sense of self. Nothing can make up for an emptiness that you have on the inside that only you can fill up, you and God. You know what I mean? And so some of this stuff, in terms of us trying to be in a different place or wanting more for ourselves and in our marriages and in our relationships, is absolutely valid. It's good. It's worthwhile. Some of it just has to do with the never-ending sense of emptiness, a never-ending being dissatisfied, moving on to the next thing and the next thing, and you're always dissatisfied. You know what I mean? There's this deep disturbance that can only be healed by God. Only be healed by a sense of acceptance of yourself, of where you've been, who you are, where you're going. Same with your partner. And if that doesn't happen, then everything that we're talking about just kind of goes into this hole, and it just keeps going out. It's like, going in and going out, because there's no foundation. There's no foundation for that to stack up on. So you got to get your foundation right. And the last thing I just want to say is that if you have been fighting hopelessness and helplessness, right, all of these things we've shared with you are important, but do not forget why you chose your boo in the first place. Don't forget why you chose your partner. It is so important to revisit that in your mind, to visualize that thing, to remember when y'all first got together, to not just remember it, but to recreate those moments, to recreate the connection, to hang out, to be together, to not think of that as a task to do, but as a place to go inhabit with your partner. I have said at different times over the trajectory of our years of marriage that I always am so grateful for the safe space that you and I have, that in the midst of all of the things that life brings us, that there is a place. It is an almost indescribable place that my husband and I can go. It is like stepping inside of this invisible bubble. I have it for myself, my own place and space, my own invisible bubble, and I have it with my husband. If you don't have that, or you had it and you've lost it, or like, dang, we ain't been in there in a minute, you need to revisit that place, because that will give you the hope. That will give you the motivation. That will give you the hold up, I am somebody. You know what I'm saying? And we gonna do this. We going places that you may have lost, but you got to get in touch with the emotional fulfillment and connection of why you chose him, why you chose her in the first place. Because if you don't, then everything becomes a heavy ass burden. And there's nothing that you're aiming for that just does it for you, because it hits your heart in a way that nobody else and no thing else has ever been able to hit you. So remember. All
right, y'all. Thank y'all for watching another episode of the Relationship Cheat Code. Please like, please subscribe, and please share. Watch the other episodes too, y'all. We be dropping game. And again, make sure you tune in every Monday for another edition of the Relationship Cheat Code. Peace out, y'all.